Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This message is brought to you by Abercrombie Kids, where the activewear is made for every summer activity, so your mini-me can bring their personal best. Summer days are always an adventure, from day camp to rec leagues and pool days. Abercrombie Kids has the shorts, tees, and swim to keep them comfy and keep up with them. Get everything for the entire summer at Abercrombie Kids. Shop in-store, online, or in the app.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are reacting to the final day of San Francisco 49ers mandatory minicamp. It was a good practice, and there was a lot to take away from the final day of minicamp. We're going to get into winners, maybe even some losers, update you on some competitions, dive into Brock Purdy's day, react to what Christian McCaffrey had to say in his post-practice press conference, and maybe even talk about some Brandon Aiyuk drama that could be real or it could be nonsense. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let's dive into the final day of 49ers mandatory minicamp. We have reached a point in time where you're not going to hear basically anything about the San Francisco 49ers for the next month or so. All the contracts are done. There really is no big news or things to talk about in between now and when training camp begins, starting in July. But let's dive into today's practice, starting with, as always, the non-participants. Starting things off, very similar to yesterday's practice, that being 7th-round pick quarterback Curtis Rourke on the sideline and is likely not going to be ready for training camp. Juwan Jennings also on the sideline today, with him Ricky Pearsall, who watched practice and was an observer throughout the entirety of the practice. He's healthy enough to practice, but they're going to hold things off, be cautious with him, and he's going to be ready for training camp. Did see Andre Dillard today on the sideline working through an ankle injury. Micah Williams, same thing, hamstring strain on the sideline, not participating in team drills. Alfred Collins, like yesterday, very similar, has a calf issue, working on the sideline, but is going to be ready for training camp in next month. Yetur Gross-Matos, he has some lingering knee issues, but should be ready to go by training camp. Fred Warner, as has it been every single day throughout the OTAs and the minicamp sessions, did not participate in practice, but watched from the sideline. Then there is Curtis Robinson, recovering from an ACL tear last year on the side field, but again is not going to be ready for training camp, or at the beginning of training camp, I might add. A new addition to the non-participant list is cornerback Deommodore Lenoir. No injury here, simple as a vet day, rest day off. So good news for Lenoir leading into the break in between now and training camp. Give them the extra day of rest. Help out your highest paid cornerback in your secondary. Darrell Luter Jr. for the second day was not at practice. Didn't see him on the field, on the sideline, or in the weight room. Not exactly sure why he isn't practicing, but not great for a player that really needs to have a good training camp and offseason program. But right now, no signs of Luter Jr. the last couple days. Marquis Siegel on the side field once again, and again, still not sure what's happening with him. Malik Mustafa watched practice from the sideline and did spend some time talking to general manager John Lynch today during team drills. I would add that if you are going to talk to one player or one person during team drills, it's probably a good idea for the starting safety to talk to a Hall of Fame safety, pick his brain, pick his mind. But again, they could have been talking about anything, but you're hoping it's football related for a young player like Mustafa. Learning from John Lynch is a pretty good idea entering year number 2. He is not going to be ready for training camp, though, this season. Tre Brown, he watched practice on the sideline today with Fred Warner, Ricky Pearsall, and others. He is supposed to be back by training camp next month after having an ankle procedure earlier in the offseason. And George Odom, he joined Brown, Mustafa, Pearsall, and Warner on the sideline today. He has a knee injury, but he should be good to go by training camp. Okay, let's move on. Let's dive into the drama that is always Brandon Aiyuk, because yesterday, Brandon Aiyuk made his first appearance at San Francisco 49ers minicamp. Obviously, he can't practice, but he's been rehabbing. He's been in team meetings, trying to be this quasi-coach kind of player and be a team leader, which he wasn't the last couple seasons. But while he's not going to be practicing or ready for training camp, he's making his presence felt. Today, though, it was much more than simply a little bit of a jog or him walking on the sideline. Today, it was much more of a spectacle, if you would call it that, because the San Francisco 49ers, like they often do, have some of their former big stars come to practice, chat up with certain players, talk to the coaching staff and whatnot, have those guys in team meetings or come talk to the team in some capacity. Well, today, San Francisco had Frank Gore, who still works in the San Francisco 49ers front office, Patrick Willis, their newest Hall of Famer, and one of their best wide receivers of all time, Terrell Owens, at today's practice. And while I'm not exactly sure what they were doing at the facility, again, maybe talking to the team in some form or fashion, but they, I don't want to say circled, but there was a point in time during practice where Aiyuk was talking to Frank Gore and Patrick Willis and Terrell Owens, and while your instant reaction is like, wow, that's awesome, that you're seeing what is supposed to be one of this team's newest leaders, its top-paid receiver, talking to 3 of the greatest San Francisco 49ers of all time, especially in the last 25 years or so. That was my first response of like, wow, like, who knows what they're talking about, but maybe it's simple as, how was your day? What car did you drive in with and whatnot? But unfortunately, when you discuss or talk about Brandon Aiyuk, at least in recent seasons, mainly last year, there's not a lot of positive things to say about him. We often forget how pivotal and how crucial he was during this team's 2023 playoff run to the Super Bowl, and how that Ladybug catch wouldn't exist without him, and them going to a Super Bowl really wouldn't be the case had he not made that catch. That's kind of all forgotten. His clutch play down the stretch 2 years ago didn't even happen because of how bad last year was. And unfortunately for Aiyuk, even if he doesn't mean to, he tends to put himself in the wrong light a lot of times, mainly this offseason, although not contract related. When you are posting yourself or you're posting on your Instagram story a picture of Terrell Owens shirtless doing crunches in his driveway when he was in Philadelphia during a contract dispute and whatnot, it does raise some eyebrows. It makes people wonder, what does that mean? And although I do think we often read too far into things, it does open the door. And Aiyuk often doesn't mind opening that door, even if he says, oh, it's all for fun, it doesn't mean anything. When you open that door, when you begin to post things that have really interesting or negative stories behind them, like T.O. calling media members to his house, working out in his driveway, you play the exact same position. You had a contract dispute 1 year ago. It does, there are connective tissue in there, and it makes fans overanalyze something that maybe he doesn't mean to be as much or read into as much as he'd like. And he'll post on social media afterwards calling people, you and your 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds in your mom's basement, we're just having fun over here. And all that could be the case. But he talked to Gore and Owens and Patrick Willis for about 10 minutes today. And I'm not going to say he lectured him or, there was this overly, loud and kind of, I guess you can say ruckus discussion. It was very much just three guys chatting it up. But when you see that, and you see Aiyuk's Instagram story, it makes you wonder, was that brought up? Is there drama there? Is there issues within the building with Aiyuk? And I would like to simply say no. Because I don't think San Francisco is upset at Brandon Aiyuk or views him in a negative light. Do I think they view the contract he signed in a negative light? Yes. Do I think that they are a little upset about how he handled himself last offseason? Of course he is. They openly have said that to Tim Kawakami via his reporting for the SF Standard. But at this point in time, it does seem like San Francisco is overly enthusiastic with where Aiyuk is at. Now, that doesn't mean in 1 year's time they're not going to want to trade him, but when you do see three legends huddled around a player that has otherwise been a very clean, quiet player, but in the last couple years has maybe brought some negative attention towards himself, you do wonder if that was brought up. I'm not going to say there's an issue with Aiyuk and the team or vice versa. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's disgruntled, because what could you possibly feel that way about? You got your money. You're the highest paid wide receiver on the team. You made it through the round of cuts that happened this offseason. And I get you're injured, but that's nobody's fault. So there really is nothing Aiyuk can be upset about. So I wouldn't say he's disgruntled, but him chatting it up with three legends could mean nothing. They could have been talking about their breakfast, their lunch, their workout routines. And I'm hoping that Aiyuk was picking the brain of three guys that did things primarily right throughout their career, albeit Owens was more of a diva, so maybe not him, but you're hoping that him talking to Frank Gore and Willison, and even Terrell Owens in his case, although he's had a very kind of bumpy road throughout his NFL career, didn't even go to the Hall of Fame in Canton, did it in his own way post-retirement, you're hoping that Aiyuk can learn from whether what T.O. went through, the mistakes he made, and even T.O. hopefully giving him good advice as to, here's what I did that didn't work out for me. Here's what I did that maybe I could have changed. And if I can look back and go back, I would do differently. You're hoping that's the case, because you can see the slope Aiyuk is taking, and you can see a lot of the fans having the negative thoughts about him, where if you even mention Brandon Aiyuk's name, it's no longer, oh, we love BA, he's so good, he's a great separator, yeah, ladybug catch. It's like, eye roll, and you're kind of like, I don't want to talk about him. It's, oh yeah, and Brandon Aiyuk. And a large part of the fan base wants to get rid of him, and that may happen in 1 year's time, but you're hoping that today, for whatever it's worth, it could mean nothing, but when you have three legends huddled around you, talking to you for about 10 minutes or so, that hopefully that there's something to be gleaned from and learned from in those conversations.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Sports are all about teamwork, and so is insurance. Whether you need an in-person or digital assist, State Farm is there to help you choose the right coverage for your home, car, and more. Get a game plan that helps fit your life and talk to State Farm today. State Farm with the assist. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state.
Tommy Huxley says, hey, fairies. What's up, Tommy Huxley? Niner Gang 209 says, that's for the coverage. I'm assuming you mean thank you. No problem, Niner Gang 209. And Fluffy Ninja, what's up, brother? And he asks, how healthy is Brandon Aiyuk? I don't think he'll be healthy enough to be cleared by week 1. But he is practicing every single day in regards to rehabbing. He's not doing team drills. He isn't participating in the actual media open practices, but he's out there with trainers before practices, after practices, doing his things. He's kind of getting his body ready. And I don't know a timeline. My assumption is he'll return sometime in November. It could be wrong there. I'm hoping it's certainly sooner. But I think Aiyuk right now is probably about 60 to 70% healthy. There's a long ways to go. I think he has about 3, maybe 4 to 5 months more of recovery. I think you'll hear him returning to practice maybe sometime in September, maybe in August, or maybe in October, and they'll get him that time. I am still circling week 10 against the Rams after their New York trip against the Giants, come back home against the Rams, You're at Levi Stadium on the grass. Here's your homecoming. Give him 2 months of games to kind of help the team go and whatnot. But I think week 10 is my point. I'm hoping it's sooner, but I think week 10 is kind of the circle date for Aiyuk. But he's getting there. It's a process, though. And I do want to move on before I get into Christian McCaffrey. Kenny, I see your YouTube comment, and Niner Gang 209. We will certainly dive in to Jacob Cowing later, but I want to quickly hit on some small things today because we have to get into some Christian McCaffrey conversation. But first, I want to mention George Kittle and Trent Williams did not do team drills today, and it was a very limited day for Christian McCaffrey and Nick Bosa during team drills, which Kyle Shanahan said was going to be a team decision to keep key players fresh. So don't look too much into that today. Nothing of injury concerns for Trent, Kittle, Lenore, McCaffrey, or Nick Bosa. But I want to dive into Christian McCaffrey because a lot has been made about his speed, his fifth gear, and I don't want to focus on those things in particular, but he's been a very heavily covered player the last couple weeks or so, primarily because of the injury recovery he's making. Last year had the Achilles injuries and the PCL injury costing the season against Buffalo last year, and he just really never found his footing. And for an older running back with a ton of tread on his tires, you have to wonder, is he slowing down? Where is he at with his injury recovery? How does he feel health-wise? And Christian McCaffrey did answer those questions today in talking to the media. He wasn't going into this insanely lengthy, response or giving, tons of detail in regards to his recovery, but he did say that, and I quote here, "I feel great," when discussing his PCL and Achilles recovery. He hasn't mentioned the words 100%. I don't think he needs to, but I think it's a really good sign Christian McCaffrey's been out there every single day. From my count, he hasn't missed a single day of OTAs or minicamps, so that's a real improvement. That's a big thing for him. Now, maybe there are small steps he has to kind of do to end off or kind of cap off his recovery and his rehab, but I don't think he has missed a single day. I don't think he's missed a single rep. Obviously, there has been limitations for top players, and he's amongst that grouping, so I wouldn't look too much into that. But I do wonder if Christian McCaffrey's holding things back a little bit. That's my thought of let's not go 100% just yet. Ease yourself in to keep yourself fresh throughout the offseason program. There is no reason a player like Christian McCaffrey or Nick Bosa or Fred Warner or Trent Williams or other guys of that status should be going 100% in the OTAs or minicamp days. There's literally only 2 mandatory minicamp days the media can go to. So I don't think that's where you turn things up for Christian McCaffrey. You do want to see him, kind of hit that quote unquote fifth and fourth gear as training camp comes around. But I have always said throughout the entire process, last year, this year, 2 years ago, that there really isn't a lot to take away from these practices outside of seeing rookies and new players in uniform for the first time. But Strawberry Reacts here says, do you think they will give Christian McCaffrey vet days off in training camp? 100% they will. Even last year, before they really knew how serious Christian McCaffrey's injury was, he was getting vet days off. Bosa will get those too. Trent will get those as well. Fred Warner, who didn't practice a single day throughout the last week, couple weeks or so, he'll get those as well. So, yes, I think they are going to try to do everything in their means to keep star players healthy. They know how important those guys are, especially when you're relying on younger players around them to kind of fill in those holes. They know they have to have CMC and Trent and Kittle and Bosa and those guys healthy. So I think you will see CMC get 2 days on, 1 day off, or even like a 1-1-1 where it's like 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day back on. I think they're going to be very meticulous in how they bring Christian McCaffrey along. And the Smitty says here in the YouTube comments, Christian McCaffrey will be fine, just make sure the younger backs play. It's a big contingent point, or it's a big conversation amongst the fan base of we get it, we love Christian McCaffrey, but there is a real concern for him as he gets older. As he ages and as the injuries pile on, you want to have guys like Isaac Guerendo, who unfortunately has his own injury concerns, but like Jordan James, like Patrick Taylor, like Corey Kiner, those guys who are in that room to be able to pick up more of the slack, give him more of a break. And I'm hoping that that's the case this year. You're hoping that after watching Christian McCaffrey go down twice last year with different injuries, albeit both significant, that Bobby Turner and Kyle Shanahan both are maybe a little more lenient with how they, delineate or kind of divvy up their running back carries and usage this season. The last thing anybody wants to see is Christian McCaffrey out there for 100% of the plays, although he may want to be for his own health and the team's success. They really need to rely on younger guys in the room, give those guys, and I'm hoping they give those guys some reps. And yes, Christian McCaffrey is seemingly getting the Kawhi Leonard treatment, the Paul George treatment of like a lot of rest days. You saw the NBA kind of implement the new rule saying you can't get awards unless you play like 80% of the regular season games, albeit the NFL doesn't have that. I think you are going to see Christian McCaffrey get those, whatever they were calling those for the NBA. You are going to see him get the star treatment, hopefully, this season during practice and training camp and the preseason leading up to week 1, because San Francisco needs him starting off hot. You have Seattle, the Cardinals, and the Jaguars, and the Rams in that 5-game stretch. You got to win a lot of those games. You want to start the year off hot, put last year behind you. Christian McCaffrey is a big reason as to why you can do that, and hopefully can try to do that to begin the year. But he says he's healthy. I do wonder if he's going a little bit less than 100%, though. There have been some reps where you're like, in previous years, maybe Christian McCaffrey beats a linebacker or beats a defensive back on certain plays. There was a wheel route today where, maybe a couple years ago, Christian McCaffrey with no injuries makes that play or kind of beats the linebacker. But again, I think a lot of it in my own reading into things is that he's just simply not going 100% this early into the offseason program. Fluffy Ninja out of nowhere, happy anniversary. You're a little late, but I appreciate the kind words, brother. 1 year in the books, hopefully a lifetime to go. But me and my wife celebrated 1 year about, 10-ish, 11 days ago, 12 days ago now. But thank you so much, Fluffy Ninja. Hope you're having a wonderful, what is it, Wednesday now? The days are flying by fast. She's on summer break, so she's here all day, and the days just kind of all congealed together, and I have no idea what day it actually is. But thank you so much, Fluffy Ninja, and I appreciate the kind words. I do want to get to some comments here in the YouTube chat. Kenny asks, how many games will Christian McCaffrey play this year? I'm going to assume there will be general wear and tear, and I think he'll play 13 games. Misses 4 games here or there, not too bad. I think Christian McCaffrey will play 13 games. Obviously, I'm hoping for the entire 17 and playoff run, but I think he'll play 13 games this year, which I think, with how little he played last year, I think he'll take. It's almost like, yes, to justify his contract, he has to be in the Offensive Player of the Year finalist again. But I think 13 games is a good spot. I do think there are going to be games where, as he gets older, as the season progresses, he's just not going to be able to, remain healthy. So I think 13 games is a good spot for a player like Christian McCaffrey. And he also says, it's Joe Montana's birthday. Well, I mean, come on. If me and the GOAT are celebrating near anniversary and birthdays, it's even better. But happy birthday, Joe Montana. Hope he's having a wonderful day. You remember his kid, Nate Montana? Was that his name, Nate Montana? He went to high school at De La Salle, I think, or whatever it was. Or no, De La Salle, he had a random practice squad visit with San Francisco back in 2016, whatever it was. I remember those days. The Jerry Rice Jr. Practice squad days or tryout days, a long time ago, but back when the GOATs were having their kids get those Nepo baby visits, it was a pretty interesting time. Niners weren't great, but you always said, wow, Jerry Rice's kid, Joe Montana's kid getting a shot, and it made us all say collectively, wow, I'm old, but still. The Smitty says, congrats, keeping marriage alive. Thank you so much, the Smitty. But let's keep the conversation rolling here on the YouTube chat. Niner Gang 209 asks, what do you think of Jacob Cowing? Hearing a lot of good things. I will echo those in a few minutes, but man, Kenny says he's the next Danny Gray. All right. Man. Harsh words. Harsh. I think Jacob Cowing is already a better player than Danny Gray ever was. Fluffy Ninja asks here in the YouTube comments, should San Francisco look into a veteran free agent? If the injuries to Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings somehow progress, get worse, or just kind of linger throughout the offseason and training camp, I can see them doing so. Amari Cooper's still there. There are some other names that are still out there you can see him bringing in. But right now, I don't think so. I think that they're okay. The way that Cowling has progressed, I think, does make them a little more comfortable. I don't love the depth behind Cowling. There are some inconsistencies with Jordan Watkins, albeit he's had a pretty good OTA period and more, but I don't think so. Not yet. If things continue to get worse and more questions arise during the next few months or so, then we can certainly have a serious conversation about that. But I'm kind of hoping the NFL doesn't suspend Demarcus Robinson. It's been over a year. It's been not over a year, but it's been since November of last year that they haven't made a decision yet. Not sure why it's taking so long. I'm hoping they kind of just let it go for his sake. And if they do, that almost erases the need to have the veteran wide receiver free agent being brought in, because you have Pearsall, Jennings, and Robinson there week one, whereas right now we're kind of all assuming he's not going to be there. But if that changes, then I don't think there's a need whatsoever. Let's see if we have any more YouTube chat comments. Niners on Top says, hey, right back at you. Let's see in the YouTube comments. Okay, let's keep things moving along the podcast and on my takeaways from training camp today. Want to update you on some competitions. Let's talk about kicker. It is Bobo's favorite time of the show, the Jake Moody topic, because yesterday we were all in a tizzy, going crazy. Jake Moody, 6 for 7, banging them puppies from 50-plus yards out. Woo-wee! But today, he was outdone by the backup, Greg Joseph, who went 7 for 7. He was perfecto on the day, including those 2 50-plus yard field goals. Didn't miss a single kick. And for those of you out there that don't like Jake Moody and are saying, I'm on Jake Moody watch, he better be out of here, come cut down day sometime in August and September. Well, as of right now, if you are intrigued by the kicking stats, he has one kick up on Jake Moody, that being Greg Joseph, who was brought in to be his competition. So, again, I don't really care about these things, but for those of you out there that do, Jake Moody thus far 6 for 7. Greg Joseph thus far a perfect 7 for 7 on the day.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
And throughout the mandatory minicamp, a 2-day practice window. Another competition I want to update you on, that being the third cornerback competition. We already know that Renardo Green and Diamador Lenore have the two cornerback spots locked up on the outside, but there is a competition for the nickelback / third cornerback role between Tre Brown, veteran free agent signing out of Seattle this offseason, and rookie Upton Stout. And I think that this is gearing up to be one of the more intriguing camp competitions when training camp comes around next month. I do think currently Tre Brown has the edge, albeit, again, you're not wearing pads and whatnot. He just knows where to be at the right time. He's jumping routes. He's making good plays, and he can play inside and outside. Gives you versatility. And I wouldn't be shocked to watch Tre Brown at least start the year as this team's number 3 cornerback. Surprisingly, though, he didn't play any nickel at Seattle very much, but is starting at nickel or is getting more nickel reps with San Francisco. So it could be a role change for him with the 49ers. But Upton Stout, I think, is coming along very quickly. He looks really good in the first couple of days of media open practices. He's very sticky in coverage. He's someone that has had so many reps where he's not biting on fakes. He's getting in receivers' faces and whatnot. He's just not giving up ground. And that's really hard for a cornerback to do when he can't put hands on a wide out. He can't play press coverage really. There aren't any pads on. You can't use your physical presence to do that. Now, maybe it changes once he's playing against Jawan Jennings and Pearsall and, some of the bigger receivers on the roster. But I have been really impressed by Upton Stout. That said, Robert Saleh, in his post-practice press conference today, said that he wasn't going to make any assessments until pads come on in a month, which I think should be really the only takeaway from practices like this of you can have minimal takeaways. Yeah, you can have your opinions on things, but you really can't make concrete, assessments. You can't make these kind of concrete, definitive statements on players when pads aren't on. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where that's what you have to do to get seen. I don't love doing that. I really, really, really think that, when no pads are on and all that stuff, you cannot make any clear, definitive statements on certain players. Really good to see Upton Stout playing well out there, and really good to see Tre Brown being a vet, stepping up, and hoping that is a competition I'm going to have my eyes on this season, because man. Moving along to Brock Purdy, but first I want to let everybody know in the comments or listening on the audio podcasting platforms, if you want to see your San Francisco 49ers play this season, or you want to go to a concert, MLB game this summer, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ErsAccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com, because you can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Me and my wife have been eyeing Savannah Banana tickets. We've also been trying to get our hands on some Giants Dodger tickets this summer, and those things are expensive too. But if you go to SeatGeek.com, find your ticket. Green means good, red means bad. Find a deal fit for you. Use that promo code 49ErsAccess, and you can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. I use it all the time. I make new accounts all the time. I keep using that promo code. It helps pay for parking, helps buy a beer, maybe even helps pay for dinner somewhere else. But go ahead and use that promo code 49ErsAccess at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Kenny here in the YouTube chat asks, can CMC win Comeback Player of the Year? I don't see why not, but unfortunately Dak Prescott didn't play much last year. The media loves the Dallas Cowboys for whatever reason. I can certainly see Dak Prescott winning it once again and just kind of zoning out everybody else's competition. Other than that, nobody else really comes to mind as big name players, but I think CMC will be in that competition if he plays, 13 games and has 1,000 yards again and has double-digit touchdowns, even if it is total. But I want to get to Brock Purdy, because yesterday he threw 3 interceptions and the sky was falling and it was, oh my God, Brock, you look bad. Well, today, a much better day for the San Francisco 49ers franchise quarterback. He didn't throw 3 interceptions, so that's pretty good. But he was a much more accurate and on-point thrower today of the football. Very pinpoint with the accuracies, going through his progressions, looked really sharp. He was getting the ball out really quick. Much more of a take what the defense gives you kind of day for Brock Purdy, so kind of balancing out his 2 days at minicamp. Yesterday, aggressive, forcing the ball downfield. Today, more easier day. Take what they give you and whatnot. Did have a couple of nice completions to Jacob Cowing and Demarcus Robinson. So you're seeing the chemistry grow. Without Pearsall and Juwan Jennings out there, you did see younger players like Cowing, and on defense, Upton Stout also getting, first-team reps with the defenses and offenses. So you're seeing younger players get meaningful-ish snaps early in the offseason program. So good to see, and you're also seeing Brock Purdy find Cowing and Robinson on a pretty consistent basis, hence why getting everybody in camp early is a big thing. Cowing, young player, had no chemistry at all with Brock Purdy last year. That's starting to build early already. DeMarcus Robinson being with the Rams last year, him and Purdy being together, that's starting to build as well early on in the OTAs. Moving on to Mac Jones. Overall, good practice. Quarterback 2 clearly on the depth chart. But besides having Besides having a solid practice, Mac Jones does have a little more Corkle in him sometimes. He has definitely been a little more wild with the football. He has a really good, arm strength, but he sometimes doesn't. Again, how do I word this? He has the arm strength and has really inconsistent touch of the football. Sometimes he has no idea the distance of quarterback and receiver and defensive player, because today he completely underthrew Jordan Watkins over the middle on a deep crossing route, and it was picked off by safety Jalen Mahoney. Then later in practice, I don't know if it was an issue getting a play in or how the offensive line was lined up or whatnot, but he had to call a timeout, which is not a no-no, but just never really happens during a mini camp practice. Usually, yes, they have those guys timed. Yes, they will call penalties on certain players and whatnot, but these practices are much more about installing the offense, kind of working on your cadence, getting guys in the right place compared to, how do you perform and your throws and whatnot. But after the pick, then you have this random awkward timeout where it's Kyle's what's going on? What's happening? I'm shocked Shanahan didn't yell at him for that, because usually that's the case. Kyle really isn't afraid to rip into somebody during practice. I've seen it happen a lot of times. But call a timeout, they kind of reset, and it was okay, that was weird. Moving along now. So a solid day, but there were some bumps along the way for Mac Jones. I do want to get into some Jordan James talk, because Jordan James, he was a lot of people's favorite to be the Niners running back draft pick this season, or this past year's draft class. I don't hate the pick, obviously. I think it's a good pick, but I had my eyes elsewhere towards DJ Giddens and other guys. But I do think Jordan James, as an inside zone runner, fits what San Francisco wants and needs to do a heck of a lot more of this season if they want to have success in between the tackles. That said, I think although it's really tough to have have concrete and legitimate takeaways from running backs and most players in the OTAs and in the mini camp days and practices like this, he's a large dude. But I'll tell you this, he can move. There was a couple of plays today and a couple of plays throughout the minicamp process where he's out there making dudes, I don't want to say miss, but he's showing off the burst where you're oh, okay, for a bigger, hulkier guy, he's got a fifth gear, if you will. Obviously, he isn't Garendo or Christian McCaffrey level speed, but if he gets going, watch out. There's a reason as to why in the red zone, all of those 15 touchdowns he had took place inside the 20. He feels like somebody that he may not have the high-end speed, but once he gets going, he's really hard to bring down. And you saw that kind of on display today. Obviously, there's no tackling, there's no pads, but he was moving pretty good against the air. And we all were all right, Jordan James, like what I see. Before I get to the Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins takeaways to round out today's show, We have a question by Kenny in the YouTube chat asking, I heard Larry Krueger say we should go after Shamar Stewart. Is this realistic? I mean, no, but I think a lot of what Larry's getting at, and I have no idea what he actually said, but from my understanding, the Bengals don't want to guarantee Shamar Stewart's money, and then Shamar is publicly saying things against the organization, and the exact quote was something along the lines of you care more about winning the argument compared to winning football games, and just not what you want your relationship to be with your first round pick. And the Bengals are a really crappy organization. They paid a lot of money for Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and all that, and that's great and all, good for those guys, but they're really cheap. They won't pay Trey Hendrickson. I have a really sneaky feeling the reason why they picked Shamar Stewart was to have a cheaper, maybe not guarantee a contract to a guy like Stewart, which is what it is. I don't know what the NFL rules are about trading players not under contract and trading players that, had yet to kind of sign their rookie deals. I have no idea what those rules are, but I don't think San Francisco is really in the business of doing so. Now, would it be great? Sure. I mean, had they not traded for Bryce Huff, maybe we're having a different conversation. But even then, not to say there isn't enough room, because clearly there is, but let's say San Francisco did make this deal, which I don't see ever happening in the next month or so. If a deal never gets done, I don't think it happens. But if you drafted, or you draft Micah Williams, he's your edge rusher, you go and trade for Shamar Stewart, which the Bengals are probably going to want a first-round pick in return, knowing he was this year's first-round pick, which I would not do at all. You are going to have to play those guys together. And neither one of those guys are going to want to be rotational pieces. The great thing about Bryce Huff is that he allows Michael to be a three-down player still. If you had Shamar Stewart and Micah Williams alongside Nick Bosa, you have three guys fighting for, the number one, number two spot, and Nick Bosa is not giving up any reps to anybody. Now, obviously, you love the depth, part of that, but no, it's not. I love Larry, but sometimes some of his opinions are kind of off the wall and don't really make any sense. Again, I love Larry so much. He's a good guy, and he's one of my former coworkers. But sometimes some things he says I just don't really understand, don't get with. But this one is certainly amongst that grouping. So no, the Niners are not going to trade for Shamar Stewart. The Bengals are going to want too much, nor would it really fit what they want to do. So I don't even think they would even ask, as they shouldn't. So no, I really don't think that's part of the problem. Niners First Takes, Aaron, how's it going? He says, why would you want that type of ego in your room? I don't know if, I think it's a nightmare what's happening between Shamar Stewart and Cincinnati on both sides. You don't want the organization acting the way they are, and you also don't want your first-round pick to be outwardly kind of bashing or shaming the organization when he hasn't played a single down in the NFL. I think they're both wrong. I think they really need to get to the table and kind of hash things out. But even then, it's not really what you want as a relationship with your first round pick. So I don't know, just bad. I think the concerns I have about Alfred Collins not signing his contract are not any way related to him outwardly saying negative things about the organization. Whereas Shamar Stewart's being pretty vocal about things. Now he isn't going out of his way, but when he's asked about it, he certainly isn't biting his tongue. I don't love that. Niners on Top said Huff was good today. Were you out there? Were you at practice today, Niners on Top? Who are you, brother? What's your name? Tell me. I have to know. If you're out there, well, love to meet you one day. That said,
After Zoomies at the dog park, it's time for Drive Up at Target. In goes a big bag of kibble and one squeaky chicken toy for the good boy. Drive up that's ready when you are. Only in the Target app. Just tap Target.
I don't know. I don't know who else is out there besides the main coverage guys, but good to know you're out there. What media credential? Who do you work for? How'd you get out there? You have to have media credentials to be out there, so it's pretty cool if you were. I'm hoping to be there again relatively soon, once training camp begins. But that said, I do want to get into the Jacob Cowing conversation because so many out there were asking, what about Jacob Cowing? And I'll tell you this, I don't think there has been a bigger winner of the OTAs and minicamp sessions than Jacob Cowing. I think he has been the big winner of the offseason so far. He's put in so much work with Brock Purdy and Pearsall and Kittle. He's gained muscle. He's bulked up. He looks so much smoother as a route runner. The way he breaks in and out of his routes, he just looks like a brand new player. A brand new player. I just think, I'm not saying he'll be great or, make these profound statements, but I think he has been the biggest winner of minicamp so far. Believe the hype you're hearing. Obviously, it needs to carry over into training camp and preseason, but I think you are going to see Jacob Cowing on the football field, at least early in the year, a lot, based on what he did thus far throughout the last 2 weeks or so in practice, because Cowing looks like he looked like the real deal for a mid-round pick. I think you're going to see him, take the next step. And again, I already said, I think he's far and away better than every other mid-round receiver San Francisco's brought in. Obviously, that doesn't count Jennings, 7th-round pick. It doesn't count, Debo and Aiyuk being 1st and 2nd-round picks, and Pearsall involved in there too. But I think for the mid-round grouping of like Danny Gray and Jordan Watkins and Dante Pettis and now Cowing looks like the one to actually that may have found his footing in the NFL, and you're hoping that carries over. But he had a big day today, 3 to 4 big catches. A couple of those went for 20 plus yards, or at least would have if they were actually playing real football. But Cowing has just been awesome. 2 thumbs up from me. He has been by far the biggest winner of this minicamp and OTA session. That said, his somewhat counterpart, being Jordan Watkins, I think had his first clear, rookie day of practice. He looked like a first year player. He looked like someone that I don't want to say is kind of head over heels or in over his head, but this was the first welcome to the NFL rookie kind of moment for him. He's had a pretty consistent, sessions and practices, but today was the one where you're like, ooh, I can see why Kyle told you. You probably weren't going to play much this year. But one good practice, or one bad practice, inconsistent practice, doesn't undo everything else you did good or well throughout the last couple weeks. But there was a play where he was supposed to run a deep comebacker, and he just kept going. Well, Purdy threw the ball where he was supposed to cut and come back to. Ball falls down incomplete. He immediately is like, oh crap. He gave him the old, Home Alone, the thing, and knew he was wrong immediately. Walked to the sideline. Purdy walks over, is kind of talking him up, and you're like, yep. He immediately knew he messed up. And Purdy, being the quarterback he is, walked over there, kind of gave him the run around of this is where you need to be and whatnot. But I think that's where you're going to see Jordan Watkins start to fall and falter, where he may look quick and fast in OTAs and minicamp against air, but once you kind of get him into, real game situations, the preseason when pads come on, I do think you will see Cowing, Robinson, obviously Pearsall and Jennings separate themselves from players like Burgeon and Tariq Owens, who was really bad today, and Jordan Watkins, guys like that who just aren't really ready to play just yet. But again, it's OTAs, it's minicamp. Once pads come on, you see a whole other level of intensity, and maybe something changes for a guy who had a not great day on his last day of media open minicamp. Maybe once the pads come on, it's a whole different player. Happens all the time. You see bigger body running backs and receivers and cornerbacks kind of make their hay, make their money during the padded portions of training camp and kind of separate themselves. So maybe that changes for him. But Kenny asks here to end today's show, who is our kick returner / punt returner? My assumption is there will be a grouping involved in that. I know Watkins has taken reps at, I believe it was kick returner. Junior Burgeon, to me, I think should be one of the clear favorites in that grouping. He was the best return man in this year's draft class. He was drafted because of that. So I think he's kind of the leader of the pack. You have Guerendo involved, albeit now that Jordan Mason's gone, they may not want him back there very much, but he has speed. If you need him back there, he can do it for you. Jacob Cowing should be in that grouping as well. I don't really know, unless I'm forgetting somebody pretty big, who else could be in that group. But it's like Watkins, Burgeon, Cowing, Guerendo. Let me think. Nobody else really comes to mind. Maybe Corey Kiner can be there, but really hasn't been a thing he's done in college. But other than that, nobody else really is like one of the clear-cut favorites. I'm sure Kyle Juszczyk will take reps in there as the emergency guy, but I think those four guys, Burgeon, Watkins, Cowing, and Guerendo are kind of the four favorites in that group. I think Burgeon is kind of the one guy you want to make it, but I'm not sure who else can be put in that grouping just yet, because once training camp comes, you'll see more of the practices with that kind of group happening on the sideline, but not much during the OTAs and stuff. Kenny asks here one final time, how many wide receivers can we realistically carry? Can we name them now? So I'm going to assume Brandon Aiyuk starts the year on the PUP list. So that's one, but doesn't really count towards your roster count, so take him on and off if you will. But Jennings, Pearsall, Cowing, Watkins will make the roster, so that's 4. I don't know if they're going to suspend Demarcus Robinson or not, but if they do, that may come into play. But if they don't, that's 5. So again, Pearsall, Jennings, Watkins, Cowing, Robinson. Aiyuk becomes kind of the 6th guy off the bench whenever he's healthy, and I think Junior Burgeon belongs in that conversation. They could also keep Isaiah Hodgins as like the bench depth guy, but I'm not sure that'll be the case. I don't think you're going to see players like Isaiah Nayor make it, or Tariq Owens make it, or Russell Gage make it. Those are guys who are practice squad players, stash guys who you hope become something. But I think those 6 plus Aiyuk make the roster. Pearsall, Jennings, Robinson, Watkins, Cowing, Burgeon, and then you have Aiyuk whenever he's healthy. But that's all I have for you today. One final one. Strawberry Reacts says, Sterling, will you be taking a break from streaming before training camp? No breaks. We are all gas, no breaks on the channel. I want to really deliver on my promise of diving into these rookies. I know it's a little late, but I do want to get into that, so I'm hoping I can get those things turned around in the next month or so. May not be streams, but there will certainly be videos coming out and podcasts coming out your way. But again, if news breaks, if new things happen, if someone gets cut, released, if injuries happen, we will be right here ready to react in the meantime. And I may have some news on a new show coming out during the season with Gray Area Sports and Niners First Take, so stay tuned for that. Working on names and graphics, so we have some news coming our way. But in the meantime, I would love it if you all liked, shared, and subscribed to the show on YouTube and on the audio podcasting platforms. If you also could give us that 5-star audio podcasting review, it is the freest and easiest way to help the show out. You can also follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. Use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And use our link in the description down below to grab yourself a case of Goat Fuel. The best and the greatest energy drink of all time can be yours by using that link down below and saving yourself 10% off your purchase. I want to thank Kenny, 49ers, Strawberry Reacts, Niners First Takes, Niners on top, not on bottom. They're on the top. We also have some more people in the YouTube chat, Tommy Huxley as well. I want to thank every single one of you, Fluffy Ninja, for joining us on today's show. The Smitty, you guys are all awesome. Niners 209, you guys are great. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy this break from 49ers content. Again, Niners hit their month-long break starting tomorrow. Then training camp comes our way in July. But stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.